Cheryl's doing good things.
Mhm.
Hello, today we have a guest, Professor James Turner. We work together in the math department here at Calvin. Known each other for a couple of years now, and I invited him on the show here a couple weeks ago, and I'm happy that he said yes. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. And I'd like to first say it's been a joy working with you these past few years and working with you in research in the past summer. So I'll be sorry to see you go as well. But yes, my name is Professor Jim Turner. I am a professor of mathematics here at Calvin. I've been here for about 27 years. I came here in 1999. Originally from Massachusetts, did my education in Boston at Boston University and MIT. Did some wandering at various institutions after that. University of Virginia, Purdue, and Holy Cross College. But then I was happy to land here. So I got my degree in algebraic topology, and that's basically about how geometric objects relate to each other. The simplest example is you think about a donut and a coffee mug, and they're both topologically the same because they have a single hole that's common to both of them. So that's the simplest way to think about that. Anyways, that's the research I do, and I've enjoyed teaching here very much. I think one of the biggest things that I also love about Calvin is that it's an opportunity to think about the relationship between faith and one's academic practice and teaching.
You like to look at different areas of math and faith and how they interact.
I'm very much interested in faith perspective. So actually, one of the reasons why I was excited to come to Calvin was because Calvin promoted a faith perspective, and ever since I was in graduate school, I've been interested in that idea, just thinking about, just what math tells you about creation, or it gives you a perspective into creation, but also what it says about the human person, about how you come to knowledge. And as a graduate student, where I had to kind of come to my own research and establish new stuff in order to create a thesis, I found my kind of awareness of what was happening as I was making discoveries, that there was something very interesting and deep about the human person that seemed to be pointing to a higher thing, something beyond ourselves. And so that really motivated me to do that. Yeah. And here, I should mention a little bit that when I came to Calvin, I went to a conference with, it was called Realism and Anti-Realism. I was looking for some type of way to help me see this, and wasn't getting much, but then a talk by our professor on campus, Dr. Laura Smith, called In Your Light We See Light. And it was all about this idea of knowledge and illumination, and that just seemed to click with me. So that's one way I started really thinking about how thinking about the idea of thinking about mathematics and doing mathematics relates to how the human person comes to knowledge, but somehow that relates to who we are in God through Christ.
So there's different views on like realism, anti-realism. I think you went into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This might be a little bit on the spot, how does that play into like faith? Because there's certain ways people view like whether math was created by God, or it's some eternal truth with him, or it's all in the mind of God. Have you run into things like that?
Well, I mean, that's a big question, right? It's the Platonic question. Yeah. Is where does math or anything of that sort, where does the eternal begin? Is it prior to God? Is it in God? Does God create it? My way of thinking about it is that it first and foremost starts with God. God is first and foremost being, and everything else is being something. So when you're saying that, I mean, just taking a math example, when I want to understand the properties of a sphere, all right, I'm understanding something that's being a sphere. But first it has to be something. And God is fundamentally the source of all being. He's the active being, is the way Thomas Aquinas would put it. He is being, but he is in all act. There's nothing that's prior to him. There's nothing that's potential in him. He is all that he can possibly be, and he determines all else that can possibly be. So in that way, to think about eternal things like Platonic forms or something like that being prior to him doesn't make any sense. There's no, what can be prior to something that, I mean, a form is like something you think about, right? And ultimately, a form can't exist without you thinking about it. There's no idea that you can form that's not first in thought. So really, the idea that there's things that are outside of us that exist independent, like humanity, being a man, or being white, or being a sphere, you know, those are all only exist as thoughts prior to them being pertaining to something in reality. So God is the first and foremost source of all that can first be before it is being something, whatever that something is. So that would be, I think that's the best answer.
Right.
And that's, and I attribute that, I mean, Thomas Aquinas has been the best to think about that. But there are other of his peers of the day, like St. Bonaventure, who has done well to that. You can go back to Augustine as well, to some sense, but those are, to me, the ones that have best thought that through.
You'd have to have existence before you can exist and then have attributes, right?
Excellent.
That's summing up.
That's right. You can't talk about something existing with a, as you say, attribute without it first being something. So you have to know, what does it take to first be before you can say, I mean, the two basic questions in anything you want to inquire about is, first, is it? Then what is it? So the what always follows the is it, or and then there is also the attending question, can it be, and then what can it be? So that's the comparison contrast between possibility and actuality.
Cool. Yeah, that feels like that ties so well into divine simplicity and other things we talked about, where a lot of those questions about God end up being the exact same answer.
Oh, absolutely.
And then with other things, created things derived from that, they have different answers. But when it comes to like, can it be, what is it,
Mm-hmm.
does it exist, what is it like, the answer when it comes to God is just yes, and who he is.
That's right.
And those are all kind of somehow the same thing.
That's right.
His attributes are his essence.
That's right.
Very confusing.
Yeah. Well, yes, it takes some thinking through in order for us to kind of fully comprehend it, but in the end, yes, it is, that it precisely has to start with what something, what is, as you say, divine simplicity, that God has to first, there's no part of him, there's nothing that makes him up, there's nothing that combines to become him, that in the end he is the purest of the purest of being, and the purest of being is just being.
He is.
He is. That's right. Right. Well, yeah. The burning bush, right? Tell Israel, I am sent you, right? Full stop. It's not I am this, I am that. I am. The first and foremost of all that is that it is something that exists per se before all else, and beyond, and after that, you can communicate what is true and good and beautiful, for that matter, and holy. But you have to start somewhere. And Jesus himself, riffed off of that by saying, when he was being confronted by the Pharisees, he was said, just to get to the fine point, before Abraham was, I am, identifying himself with that burning bush. And they tried to kill him for that because they knew what he was trying to say, that he was the Son of God. Don't ever let anyone say that Jesus didn't think he was the Messiah. He said it often and in a variety of different ways, and that's just one example.
Yeah. Okay, well, to sum up, I think we've covered so many theoretical and strange ideas when it comes to math and things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people, when they're pursuing their degree or certifications for a job as a student, get a little bogged down when it comes to theology and stuff.
Right.
So do you have any practical wisdom or advice for students in following Jesus in their studies?
I think it's important, and I criticize myself because sometimes things get away from me, but I think it's important to do devotions every day. And by doing devotions, don't think reading anything but the Bible is doing devotions. Read the Bible as much as you can. Personally, I hang out more in the New Testament than the Old Testament because I think those are just basically telling me who I am in Christ. Now, the Old Testament has glimmers of that, and it's great stuff, and the Psalms are wonderful, and Proverbs are wonderful, and you can get a lot. And it's good to know where things were prior to, because you have to know what context Jesus was saying things. But in the end, read the Bible, own it as much as you can. Try to know who you are in Christ. Because ultimately, you want to grow in faith. And my sense of faith is, if you want to think about, from a mathematician perspective, someone who pursues truth, you want to know who the source of truth is. And the source of truth is, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Thomas Aquinas identified God as the first truth, and that faith is what directs you to that truth. So it's only through Christ that we can come to know God in that manner. So I think that's the way I would recommend from a day-to-day activity. To set aside time during your day to do dedicate yourself to some reading of the Word to know who you are in Christ, because that will bring you closer to understanding what truth really is. So that's what
Sweet. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was fun.